So today we're back on the Madnette rat rod. And we're going to bring you up to speed on getting the rocker and sill assembly to this point here. So off camera, I've been tweaking on this thing and trying to adjust it and make it all fit the way I want it to. And we went ahead and made the rear section here. And it took me a little while of getting it to sit where I wanted it and get everything square. And it ended up taking me dropping out the inner sill and working with just the outer sill only to get everything lined up where I wanted it to, and then come in and put the outer sill or the inner sill in later to get it all sitting square and fitting the way I wanted it to fit. And so it was a bit of a process there, but now that I've got that figured out, I know how we're going to work it on the other side. And I'll show more of the part of the process you didn't get to see on this side when we get to that side. But we went ahead and put some little support pieces inside both the inner sill and the outer sill here. Not that we need it for the reasons it was there originally, but that's right where the door post is. We want to make sure doors don't sag or anything, and it's pretty close to where the body mount's going to be. So I went ahead and put something in there for support, and we'll just slide this in from the back side, get it all clamped up, and I'll go ahead and plug weld it together. I do have a spot welder, but it's only a 110 spot welder. It's not that powerful, and I'm at this point still not completely trusting of it to put together, say, a couple layers of 16 gauge without any issues. And it takes long, you got to clamp it kind of long to make sure it does it, and it will overheat with that many spot welds. So we're going ahead and plug welding everything under the A pillar and B pillar and every third weld in between. That way we can go ahead and get it together without doing a ton of drilling and grinding and all that stuff. And I can come back later and finish out with a spot weld, a little bit here and there, and finish it all up. So now what I can do is take this over to the workbench and finish plug welding where I couldn't get to it behind the A and B pillars, and we can start working out our mount here. So this is how we are doing the body mount under the A pillar here. Now this whole thing's upside down, so you gotta figure it's being the right way up. But we went ahead and put a piece of metal in here and just welded it fully all the way around and cleaned these up here. This is 16 gauge here. We tried to not make this too complicated, but we also want to make sure it's strong enough for a body mount. Now we got a nut that is the right thread for the bolt that goes through the motor mount, or the body mount. Oh, but I wanted it to take up the whole space between here, and it was smaller than that. But it turns out the two pieces of 12 gauge was perfect thickness. So I went ahead and just cut two little pieces, and I'll weld the one to this, and then we got some plug holes that we're going to plug weld into this. So we'll drop this piece in here, and we'll weld it all the way around, and then we'll actually take another piece and put right in here and weld it all the way around, and it'll create box sections there, making it plenty strong. So this is how the mount will actually end up going, is it'll sit on here like this, and then it'll bolt right through that hole, and then this and it'll actually stick up through here just inside the fender well. And that should be plenty strong enough without getting too crazy complicated. So I spent a little time off camera kind of thinking about this rear mount here with the rocker in place, and I took it back out so we can show you what we actually did here. Went ahead and welded a 1.5-inch washer onto this one too, because there was just enough rust in that, just like we did on the front ones. And I positioned it back here to where it's actually just overlapping the spring hanger here, because if we end up doing a bench seat back here and roughly replicating the original seat pan here, the stud would end up just inside the seat pan, and I won't have to worry about it sticking up through the floor anywhere and dealing with that. And I also finished welding all this in here and making this back panel here and welding all this up so the front mount is now complete up there. And we built this mount off the inside here to line up with this, and I also just capped, I don't know if you can see it, just capped the end of this here, which is how it would have been done originally from the factory. So I can go ahead and stick this in here. I'm going to show you a little bit more what we're doing. So I'm still working out all the final details of how I want all this to look. But like I said before, we're going to kind of recreate that section that was in here. Now, my friend that owns this would not care about that at all. But this is the kind of details that I really like to do. If I put this in here, it kind of replicates the original look. So when you open up the door, it kind of looks like it's supposed to look. But then it also gives me some support to bring this back into the rear wheel well. And we might want to have that to spread the load out a little bit more. Plus we also got some more plans here at the end of the rocker that you'll see later on in the build. So I went ahead and did some repair to the inside of the A-pillar here. We got that all fixed up because there just wasn't enough there to weld to. And you don't know how much it pains me to not tackle these little pinholes here, but he doesn't want me to do it, and I've already taken us further than he wanted me to. But next we got to make a little cardboard template to go here for the piece that rolls in. So I got a little cardboard template here that we put in here, and when we go ahead and make this, I need to add a flange to this side and this side, because one gets turned up and the other one gets turned down, and we'll have to shrink this one and stretch this one to make it all fit.
It's so cool how that is that. Good circuit. Good circuit. know.
So a little bit of minor tweaking with the hammer and dolly, and we'll get that fitting pretty good. So what we got is we got a bunch of changing measurements. It's much wider here, then it narrows up a little bit, then it stays relatively consistent through here, but it is getting deeper as we go down here. So I made some little cardboard templates. One goes right here. One would be right about here in the middle, and then one for the very end. But they're all three a little bit different shape, which is going to make the panel look a little funky, and I'm not sure it's going to look like what we want it to look, but we'll give it a try. So I actually already made up a test piece, mainly because I didn't know if it was going to work, and I just wanted to kind of knock something out and see what would happen. So what we've got is this shape here, and when we bent this, it's actually about 80 degrees here, and then we go 90 degrees because this sits about 10 degrees taper on the doors. But then the bottom here, it's only about 1 inch wide and about 45 at the back edge here, or the middle, and the front edge is more like 72 and almost 2 inches. Now, of course, we can't bend 45 at one end and 72 at the other on a leaf brake. So what I did was I just bent it at roughly 60 degrees, and then just come back and open this one up a little bit, and then close this end up a little bit, and we'll just have to work it by hand. But then what that does is that makes this curve slightly this way at the end where I closed it, and then concave slightly at the end where I opened it, so I got to work all that out. But it is what it is. But now that I got the front one and I think this is going to work, I'm going to go ahead and do the back one, put the two together and see what it actually looks like on the car. Now in the case of this rear section here, this actually stayed pretty close to 45 at both ends, which means this is going to be a lot less tweaking and playing with. It was just the measurement here and here that changed. But we do have a bit on here that's going to be a little bit funky to deal with that we'll get into a little bit later. Nope, missed on the measurement on that one. Try again. So I went ahead and made a new rear piece using the right dimensions this time. Either I transferred to some dimension wrong or something, I'm not sure what happened yet. But I got it fitted up here, and after a bit of tweaking and playing and fiddling, I finally got everything looking pretty good. Went ahead and welded them together and got it on there with a few self-tapping screws to see what it looks like. Now this was more or less just a test piece because since we have a taper in the whole sill assembly where it's taller in the back than it is in the front, and I made a simplified design here where we kept this dimension the same all the way up, which means the bottom of it here kind of does a twist where it flattens out a lot as it goes up. Because I didn't want to try at this point in time to take the time to try to figure out what this line was going to be and what all the measurements were going to be to get these to line up and be a straight line with this not being in the middle of the panel. So I decided let's just whip one up like this, see what it looks like, and see if he's happy with it. And if he, so far, he's seen pictures of it and he's really happy with it so far. Now in the back here, I had done some simplifying of the design of this because this was supposed to actually come and roll up over the top and be spot welded across the top. But I figured it'd be a whole lot easier to work with it like this, where I can just slide it in rather than having to take a whole assembly out to put it together. But originally, when this rolled over here, this area here wasn't just straight. It kind of came back, and from somewhere around in here, it started tapering out until it reached back here. So it'd be this height back here. Now, whether we actually end up doing anything with that or not, I don't know. I know he's not going to give a crap at all. He's going to say, that's fine, just like it is. Don't mess with it, don't put the extra time into it. But I still got to figure out how all of this stuff comes together and how we're going to box all this in and connect this to here. So we'll see when as I'm figuring out what I end up doing with it. Now in the front section here, there is not enough left of either side to know how all this stuff was boxed in and how it was finished off originally. I still got to put the fender on here to find out where we're going to be terminating this and bending that over, and then figure out how to box all this in. Plus the fender actually has a bracket that comes right off the back of the fender. Now, we never had the splash shields for this car, but I believe that bracket bolted to the splash shields, and that's what held the bottom of the fender in place here. Now, we'll see what we end up doing with that as we go on further, because we don't have to do it exactly the way this factory did it. We can do it any way we want. But I'll figure it out as we go.